Devin Townsend. I can only describe Devin Townsend as epic. Epic. I've been listening to him for a while, and that's the first thing that comes to mind, whether it's that wall of sound that he has, that white noise guitar, or his just incredible range and incredible musicianship, whether it's him on guitar or the people that he gets to play with him, as these two songs will, as Kingdom anyway, would say. So let's get right to Kingdom, shall we? So I'm going to be doing Kingdom and Storm, and the theme for these two songs is that Devin is asking someone, and in Storm it's his wife, he mentions her by name, to not leave him, to stay with him. So I heard Storm first when Accelerated Evolution first came out. Accelerated Evolution is one of my favorite albums. And this was the first Devin Townsend song I ever heard. I heard of Devin Townsend way early when he was with Steve Vai. It was like Steve Vai's first solo album with the singer. So when I first saw that, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? But I really got into Devin Townsend when Accelerated Evolution came out, and it was from hearing Storm. So I'll go into my history with Devin a little later. So with Kingdom, same thing. So let's just jump right into that. I just want to say I'm not reacting to it, considering I've heard the song a million times to begin with, but I will say that Devin has so much stuff that I even though I've been a fan of his for a while, I don't buy everything he releases. He sometimes releases so many things that I kind of get overwhelmed, so I don't get it, but it did take, YouTube, Kingdom going viral, his solo performance of it at the EMG pickup video, and then the reaction videos to it. I love reaction videos, and the more I watch those, I'm like, whoa, this is a really good song, and I just know how good a talent Devin is. So, isn't a reaction video, but I will go over the lyrics and then describe the song, the music itself. So, this is probably my third time saying let's get to it, but let's get to it. The song begins very metal and very epic sounding, and I mean epic sounding, like when I say epic, it's like I'm about to go into battle with an army of thousands of elves or something, or about to fight this demon army and saving the world from being swallowed in a fiery pit kind of epic, and we're all on, we have ships and elephants behind us and we're about to charge. It's just a triumphant sound, and it's reminiscent of his work in Strapping Young Lad, which is like his just really heavy metal band that he recorded a bunch of cool albums with. So it just begins with that, and it's like, yeah, all right. And then he, in very Devin Townsend style, it's touched with synths. So it's synths, but it's like vocal synths. So it's like like that. It kind of reminds me of like the Yes era, like 90125 Yes era when they went synthy. It's kind of reminds me of that. I always get that kind of Yes vibe when I hear especially his later stuff, like on Empath. So it begins with that, and then there's that big wow, where his like just that scream is just so good, and the fact that his voice has stayed how it is for so long is just a testament to, he doesn't take any vocal lessons, and it's so interesting watching these vocal teacher reaction videos saying, oh, look at the technique that he's doing. And so it leads me to believe that he's naturally doing this technique without knowing it, because I believe he said he's never really had any lessons. And it could be that his throat just could be, naturally gifted, where it just doesn't get worn out. And he's been doing this for a long time, so you figure by now it would have. And there are some singers, like Adele comes to mind, where her voice went out, and like Roger Daltry, his voice went out. There's a lot of singers whose voices go out. James Hetfield's voice got blown out, and then they have to take lessons to strengthen it. Devin never had to do that. So there's that, whoa! And then it's hard to hear in the background, and I don't have official lyrics for this, so I'm trying to listen to the song and get the lyrics on my own, and I'm listening with headphones, and it kind of, there's like in the faint background, it's kind of him. It sounds like he's singing something like, "Leave me, let me go," like "Leave me, let me go," but I'm not sure he's actually saying that, which would make sense, even though it's contradicting to the song. It might show the struggle that he's having while singing it. So maybe that's what he's saying, but again, I'm not sure. So the lyrics start with, I wonder why I've come undone. And then he repeats that I've come undone. And this song, A Kingdom, was originally on the Physicist album. And that was his solo album under Devin Townsend, and that was released in 2000. And I believe it was during this time where he has said in interviews his history with mental illness, and specifically being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And bipolar disorder is drastic and significant mood swings. So when someone it used to be called manic depressive, but it's not anymore. But when someone is manic, think of like the best you've ever felt, the highest of highs, and you're so motivated, and you can just get everything done. You feel on the top of the world. You feel like a god. You can have these god complexes where it's almost a psychotic break where you're out of touch with reality. That's how manic someone is, and that's how high on the bipolar scale there is. Now with bipolar, though, when you get so high, you gotta come down, and that coming down, the depressive part, is the extreme opposite of how great you felt while manic. So when you're depressed, it's just, you're not getting out of bed, you're not motivated to do anything, you just feel worthless. So Devin has a history of that, and he seems to be doing okay now, which is great. But I wonder around the time of Physicist if things weren't going so well, and maybe he's wondering why he's come undone. Maybe he's on the down part of bipolar disorder. So why I've come undone. So he just doesn't know why, and sometimes obsessing over that and questioning that could make the symptoms worse. And then he says, "Stay with me." And then, in some versions it sounds like he's saying love, but I swear, I listened to off the Epicloud album. So he re-recorded Kingdom originally on Physicist, and then he re-recorded it on Epicloud, and that's the one I listened to. I find the production's better, so it's easier for me to listen to. It just sounds better, and I think his vocal performance is better too. But the song is the same. So he says, "Stay with me," and it sounds like he's saying Lord, which, maybe this is him on, the manic part where he feels godlike and he's talking to another god, and then he's saying, "Play with me." Now play could mean a bunch of things. Play could mean playing with a friend like you did when you were kids. Play could mean, things that you do with someone you're in a relationship with, or someone you love, or, someone you're having a physical relationship with. And play could mean what you do in a band. He was in a band called Strapping Young Lad, and even though he was the leader of this band, I know on the SYL album, at least, it was more of a collaborative effort, which he has said that he kind of had a problem with. But at the same time, he liked being in a band where it wasn't a solo project. So maybe there was less pressure that way, and being in a gang, and we're all in this together kind of thing, as opposed to, if I lose my drummer, I can just get another one. Sometimes when you're in a band, hopefully anyway, each member contributes something special. And when that member is lost, sometimes the band would definitely sound different, and sometimes the band would cease to be. Led Zeppelin is one of the few bands who just didn't get back together after John Bonham died. A lot of bands just do. And the Beatles, the Beatles broke up, but they never got back together. After Lennon died, they never had a replacement for him. So then he says, "Okay, I know I missed it. The point I mean. I missed it. So maybe he's having an argument with someone, probably the girl he's singing about. So he didn't get it. But then he says, and there's background vocals going on. So, and it's a woman singing. So maybe the woman is the girl in the song. So in the background it says, the point I mean, I missed it. And then in the background it says, so could I know? And then Devin says, I missed it, so if I could. And then the woman says, could change it. So it's almost like she's leading him, or maybe feeding him the lines, or maybe just saying, this is what you mean, right? And then he says, good God, I would. So Devin says, okay, I know I missed it. The point I mean, I missed it, so if I could change it, she's kind of filling in the words, if I could change it, good God, I would. So he did something that he regrets. And if he could change it, he would totally do it, but you can't. So once you do something, you can't change it. You just hopefully, realize what you've done, understand the consequences, ask for forgiveness, and hopefully one gets forgiveness, and hopefully the apology is something that's heartfelt and something that they mean, not just something to get them out of trouble. So then he says, stay with me, and I think he says Lord. In some versions it sounds like he says love. It could be both. Maybe he worships the person that he loves, and then he says play with me. And then it goes into, song gets a little darker, well, not a little darker, the song gets a lot more grim. He goes, now I've seen the way I'm headed. So again, I think of Bipolar. I think that he's heading downwards into a depressive state. And he says, down and down. Now, it sounds like, in live versions, it sounds like he said, down and down, the truth defended. In this, it sounds like the youth defended. So let's stay with youth defended. Youth defended meaning, maybe he's defending something he did in his youth, or he's saying he's using the youth as an excuse. So that's why he did what he did, because he was young. Now, I've also heard the truth descended. Now, the truth descended could mean that it's a lie. So if that's the case, he's heading downward and he's lying, and it's hard for him to get back up. And then he says, have it here and without worry. Now, this could mean that he means the truth. So I'm giving you the truth and don't worry about it. This is the truth and I'm defending it, So he says, have it here and without worry. Baby, please, there is no worry. I'm fine. And this line, regardless of what album he sings it on and what performances, this line kills me, because the way that I interpret it is that he's not fine, and reminds me of myself and then people in my life. When you say, hey, how are you doing? And they go, I'm fine, but they're not really fine. They're just saying that to shut you up. They don't want to talk about it. If they don't want to say, I just don't want to talk about it, please leave me alone, I don't want to do this, they'll say I'm fine just to make you feel better, or they want to shut you up. They don't want to talk about it. So when someone says I'm fine and they aren't, that hurts. And that's what I think of. And especially the way he sings it, he just yells and screams, and he's saying, don't worry, I'm fine, stay with me. So he could be lying and saying that he's fine because he doesn't want to drive her away based on how he's acting. And then he says, stay with me, Lord or love, play with me, stay with me. And then it says, play with me, girl. And then he says, it's only a song. And this is significant to me too, saying, hey, I don't really mean this. I'm just writing a song about it. Okay, don't worry. It's just a song. I got to make a living writing a song, right? Meanwhile, some of the best songs are, it's about the truth and about how the person's feeling, and they can say, oh, it's just a song. It makes me think of some people when they get in trouble, and they go, oh, I was only playing a character. So what do you mean you were only playing a character? You were as you. It's like, no, but my media personality is such as this character, and I had to say something outrageous. I don't really mean it. I'm just a character, So it kind of reminds me that, hey, it's only a song. It's not real life. It's okay. It's a character. Wink, wink. And then he goes, fire it up, and then it just goes metal, and it just goes back to metal, and then it's like a galloping metal, like kind of like a little faster Iron Maiden, and it's so funny when you watch the live versions, and a lot of the live versions they do like some posing, like some Kiss posing, where like they do like dance moves and they move the guitars around. And the coolest thing is that Devin is such an amazing guitar player, and he really knows how to write a solo and play a solo and do all the tapping and guitar acrobatics, but at the same time play with such emotion. And there's not an elaborate solo in the song because, quite frankly, it doesn't need it. I mean, the song is epic enough that I think maybe the solo would make it too epic, so he just doesn't need it in it. And then it goes into, still the solo, where it sounds like, and these vocals are hard to hear, but it sounds something like we are the word, we are the one. So that's almost religious in tone, if that's what he's saying. So maybe this is where the God complex comes in. And then it's something like, we are forever getting to you, so I hope you come. It's something like that. So that maybe it's so hard to hear. And I'm trying to listen with my headphones, and I don't have any lyrics. So it gets me closer to the song, though. So it kind of like I hope you come kind of goes with the the stay with me part of the song, and then he goes back to now I see the way I'm headed down and down, and it sounds like in this the truth descended again. It sounds like he's saying truth in this part of the song, and then it says hell is here but it hath no fury. And then this part where it goes, woman still, there is this demonic voice going on. So it leads me to believe he's saying, hey, I'm fine, but meanwhile he's this demon, and this is such a disturbing side of him. So imagine someone who's acting in a very disturbing way, and they're saying, don't worry, I'm okay. I swear I'm okay. Leave me alone. Don't leave me. I'm okay. But they're not, And he says, and he keeps saying, and screams, I'm fine. And the line, hell is here, but it sounds like he says it has no fury, but it could very well say it hath no fury. And that line is very much a tribute to the line, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And it's from a play called The Mourning Bride by William Congreve. So he's an author in the late 17th and early 18th century. So it means that a woman who's been rejected, or I believe it means, according to dictionary.com, I never read the play, it says, no one is angrier than a woman who has been rejected in love, which is interesting because it doesn't sound like the woman in this song is rejected at all. It sounds like Devin is, so maybe he's talking about himself, but he's trying to project it onto the woman. So hell is here, but it has no fury. Woman still, in the demonic voice, there is no worry, I'm fine. And then he goes to stay with me, Lord, play with me, and then he repeats that over and over again. So a gut-wrenching song where he's begging someone to stay, and it sounds like that person's leaving because Devin is, or the subject who's singing this song is having a breakdown of some sort, and the person isn't fine. So it's such an emotional journey, this song. It's close to 6 minutes long, and I'm tired after I listen to it, but then I want to listen to it again because it helps me feel so much. It's just that's what, along with movies, that's one of my favorite things, and I say this over and over again, that's what music does. It helps me feel, and this one certainly does, especially with issues of abandonment and wanting to be stayed with and not left, regardless of how someone is feeling. And I think that's when people need people the most, whether they like to admit it or not, when they're at their most vulnerable, and the person singing the song is certainly at his most vulnerable. So, speaking of vulnerable, let's go on to Storm, shall we? And Storm is very much obvious in its meaning, but still very, very powerful. And Storm was the first Devin Townsend song I ever heard. I knew of Devin Townsend when he did an album with Steve Vai in... What year was that? It was Sex and Religion, released in 1993. So, and before that, Steve Vai was known for his instrumental stuff, and now he released an album with a vocalist, and I think it was like on Jay Leno I might have saw him for the first time. And I'm like, what? Who is this guy? Because, he was just, didn't have any eyebrows, and his head was completely shaved, and he was doing like these weird moves, good voice. But I was like, okay. And then I later found out that was the same guy. But the first Devin Townsend song I ever heard was Storm. And this was, God, must have been like 2003 when the album came out, 2004, around that time. And I was acting at the time, and I was temping just to supplement my acting income. And I was like doing some office work, and I was sitting at a desk, and I had WSOU on. Now, WSOU, I don't even know I think it's still around. It's Seton Hall University, and they called it Pirate Radio. It's a college radio station, but they played metal. And the metal they played was metal that you wouldn't hear on the mainstream radio stations. By then, you would hear a lot of Metallica, and then and some of the other. Every once in a while, maybe you would hear Anthrax, and then you would hear by 2003. I don't even know what the music scene was like in 2003. I don't really remember, but I think by then that was like the Strokes, the Vines and the Hives and bands like that. But anyway, that's aside from the point. Devin Townsend wasn't being played on mainstream radio, so I'm like, well, I'm gonna put some WSOU on and hear some stuff that no one else knows about, which is cool part about metal. So this song was being played, and I heard, I just heard the last part of the lyrics where it's him saying, stay with me, and screaming it, and then the DJ said, that's just an epic sounding song. It's kind of like, you're looking over a cliff and it's just epic, and you see this view and it's at like the end of a movie and you see the credits rolling, and I'm like, that's a great description of a song, And but since that description, and the DJ was right, how epic sounding Devin Townsend is, even back then, way back in 2003, which seems like a lifetime ago. But, so I heard it, and I think I ended up Googling the lyrics because I didn't remember catching the name. I forgot how I specifically found it. It might have been from that. And this is before smartphones, so I think I wrote it down, and then I bought Accelerated Evolution, and to this day, it's one of my favorite albums. I have a few Devin Townsend albums and like one Strapping Young Lad album, so I don't have everything. He's so prolific. He releases so much that sometimes I can't catch up, but I do have a good amount of it. But, you remember the first, and sometimes. And Storm was my first, and just the whole album. It really helped me through. During this time, there were some tough times in my life, and this helped me through a lot of those tough times. So, Storm is slower than Kingdom. It kind of has like a plodding rhythm to it, and Townsend has said publicly he's not a big fan of Accelerated Evolution, which it kind of bummed me out because it's my favorite album of his, and the fact that he doesn't like it, I'm like, what? And obviously just because he doesn't like it doesn't it's still okay for me to like it, even though he doesn't, but it would have been cool if he did. I'm still going to like it regardless of how he feels about it, even though he created it. But he only really likes, he'll play Storm. He doesn't mind that, but he loves Deadhead, and Deadhead has gone viral as well, because the reaction vocal teachers are listening to him play it and are just like, what? And then the people who aren't vocal teachers, who just sit there and react to the video, they're just like, oh my God, his voice. So I'm at least glad he plays that. I would love someday for him to play the whole Accelerated Evolution album. I doubt that's going to happen. Every once in a while, he'll play, if someone requests, if he's doing like a guitar clinic, he'll play Slow Me Down, which I love. I love like every song on that album. He'll play Deadhead, he'll play Storm. I wish he played the other songs on that album. Someday, hopefully, maybe. But so the lyrics are pretty straightforward, but they're very, very powerful, very honest. Doesn't leave a lot of room for interpretation or subtlety. Oh, a little room for interpretation. So as I go on, I will talk about it. So he says, if you wanted to, say you wanted to, if you wanted to save the world. Now, the world can mean a lot of things. It could mean their relationship. That's what it's probably about. Their relationship is the world. So this sounds like he's having a conversation with his wife or girlfriend, Tracy. I know this because he says the name of the person he's talking to, and I believe Tracy is his wife. Is his wife now. I believe they're still together. And they have a kid. And I know this because he writes about being a father in the album Synkestra that he released after this one. So he says, where could you start? How could you start? If you wanted to feel like I feel. What he's feeling like, he begins to explain, which I think goes back into he could be having another, manic depressive episode, and he's just not feeling his best. He goes, you're running dry. Running dry can mean running out of money. It's very, very hard to make a living as a musician. Even, a successful musician like Devin Townsend has struggled. Even though he's been doing this most of his life, he has struggled as a musician. And even though he can sell out like a Royal Albert Hall and he can tour the world and, it's still not the most profitable industry to be in. He really hustles, whether it's, doing these guitar clinics or these spoken word things or just recording a ton of albums and having these endorsement deals because he's such a technically oriented guy when it comes to guitars, selling merchandise, all of this kind of thing, like the business and the pressure to provide, especially for his family and for his child or children. So you're running dry. It could be money. Maybe she's sober. Who knows? Devin has talked about he did a lot of drugs and he smoked a lot of weed, to cope with what he was going through. And he says, I'm flying high. So flying high could mean he could be manic. He could be really, really high on weed. And then he says, we're running on feel. So feel could mean, we're just kind of making this up as we go along. We're not really thinking this through. Let's just see what this feels like. Now, that could be okay. Let's just go with emotions. Let's ride the wave. Or it could be, we're not really thinking this through. Let's stop and think about this. So it really depends. However, it doesn't seem like it's helping. So we're running on feel. And he says, you wanted to be what you've never been before. We worked hard for a living. We worked hard for it all. So he doesn't say what Tracy wanted to be. It sounds like she has ambition and she's striving for something. What that is, we don't know. And he says, we worked hard for a living. So maybe she helped him with his career. So it became a we because that support was there for him when he just wasn't doing well, whether it was financially, emotionally. Maybe she helped him with aspects of his career because it's such a hard thing to do. He doesn't say. And we worked hard for it all. We worked hard to make a life. Now, this is where it gets scary because it's kind of the same thing like in Kingdom. It says, hey, I'm fine. Don't worry, I'm fine. But he's probably not. So he says, you run and hide. Don't run and hide. I'm starting to feel okay. But it's like, what the fuck? What the hell is he doing? What is going on that she's running and hiding from him? Again, he doesn't specify what that is, but it can't be the best thing because she's running away from him. And then he says, I'm starting to feel okay. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm starting to feel okay. It's the same thing. It runs parallel, these two songs. And they weren't written that far apart. Physicist was 2000, Accelerated Evolution was 2003. And then around the same time as Accelerated Evolution, he wrote the SYL album. So he might have been so burnt out with the amount of work that he was doing and the touring. He never toured on Accelerated Evolution. He only toured, I think, a couple of dates for this album, and he mostly toured, I believe, on the SYL album, which is a shame. I would have loved to have seen footage of that Accelerated Evolution tour where they focused on that album, because we may not hear these songs at all. He says, I'm starting to feel okay, but then he says, but I'm wasted and I'm failing. So wasted could mean he's on substances. Wasted can mean he is so burnt out. Failing could mean, maybe he's not making that much money, or maybe he feels that failure could be that he's not writing the music that he wants to write. And that was a criticism with the SYL album, where it's like his heart wasn't in it. He says that the music's good and he's glad that people like it, but his heart wasn't in it. So that could be failing as well. And then he says by name, oh, Tracy, please, can't you see it's just me? Saying, hey, come on, you know me by now. We've known each other for a while. I think they've been together since they were 19 years old, and Devin's like 48 now. So by this time, they've known each other for a while, probably like over 10 years. And he says, it's just me. It's okay. I'm just having a thing. Please don't be scared. But when it comes to something like that, if someone's scared, they're going to be scared regardless of whether you tell them, don't be scared, and then he says, I wanted to feel what I've never felt before. What that means, I don't know. Maybe he, got so high on substances, on drugs, that he just wanted to see how that felt. Maybe he wasn't adhering to some kind of therapy for the bipolar, and he was seeing how that felt. Or it could be something completely different. I don't know. Again, he doesn't specify it. And he says, though, I was tired of the living, which means, it could mean he was tired of living his life, but it could also mean, which I think it means this, that he was just tired of being a musician, just the grind. Even if someone is super successful, you still got to travel, you still got to be away from home, and on someone as brilliant a musician as Devin is, if you see footage on the Accelerated Evolution tour, it's just a bunch of guys in a van, in like an RV that's falling apart, playing these small places, and traveling the country or the world, in different kinds of weather, and probably not being the most hygienic, and it's a really tough living. So he might have been tired of that, just being away from home. And he goes, I was tired of it all. And then it goes into like the solo aspect. And again, just like Kingdom, there's no, there's no like guitar wanking, there's no like tapping or anything fast. It's more like ambient stuff and like a little guitar touches here and there. And I think like you can faintly hear him say like time, it's only time. And if that's the case, because it's hard to hear, that can mean so many things. Time, time could mean, hey, it's only time and I'll be back soon, or it's only time can mean, time doesn't stop for anyone. We're all gonna die. So, maybe make the most of it. Who knows? And then he comes back and says, if we wanted to, say we wanted to, if you wanted to save our world, but he's screaming. So this could be the part of the argument where he's just, completely lost a sense of self, could be experiencing, a break with reality. He could be very angry, he could be very sad, he could be very scared, he could be all these things at once. And, and he's, if we wanted to save our world, I'm waiting here, waiting here, baby, please stay with me. very, very similar to the lyrics of Kingdom, where he wants someone to stay with him, and he just screams it at this point. Kingdom, he kind of sings it, and it's kind of nice and melodic. This is just him screaming that line once. The only time he says it, "Stay with me," in this song. And then he says, "We wanted to be what we've never been before." So, a happy couple, a stable couple, who knows? And it's them trying to find progress in their relationship. And it sounds like they're working it out in this song. Devin may not be too successful, at least with this song, but apparently something worked, because like I said, I believe they're still together. So we wanted to be what we've never been before, but are we tired of the living? So there's doubt. It's like, do I want to do this? Do I still want to do this? And, thankfully for all of us, he still is, because his later stuff has just been so good. And he has said in interviews before that he can't go to that place where he was on albums, with Strapping Young Lad, or even, some of the, like the stuff he sings about in Accelerated Evolution and some of the other stuff, because it's not the best place for him. So maybe when he sings about these kind of emotions, it affects him in such a way. And his album Empath is definitely, sounds like more of a spiritual album, and more of like positive emotions being let out, happiness, and saying love, and we're all in this together, because he possibly facing those emotions, at least right now, would affect him in such a way where he may not be able to function. Now, there is a function in music where, screaming about stuff and singing about anger and rage is good, because the listener can feel that with the person or the band singing. And it's the same thing, though, with happiness and grace and positivity. And it really depends on your mood. So neither one is wrong. It just depends on where you are and what you want to listen to. And if you want to listen to something epic, you put some Devin Townsend on. If you want to feel anger, you put something angry on. It's okay. That's the beauty of music, and just to get that out of you so you can go on with your day, and where you can feel your emotions, and then it helps. It helps you progress, I think, and it helps you move on to feel, It's one of the things you can do. If you feel that you need help, then you would want to talk to a mental health professional, for sure. There's no shame in it. The stigma is decreasing, I think. 30 years ago, probably not. You would be looked at like, what are you, crazy? Why don't you figure this out yourself? Now it's more understandable, especially during the, we're still in a pandemic. During the COVID-19 pandemic, there's going to be a lot of mental health issues before it, a lot of mental issues because of it, and there's going to be a lot of mental health issues after it. So I think the sooner we face those issues and the trauma and all of those feelings that I think a lot of people are going to be experiencing after all this is over, it's a really good time to see a professional about this. So he said, we wanted to be what we've never been before, but are we tired of the living? Now he says, are we tired of the war? And this resonated with me, especially when the album was released. So on one part, he could be about the war that they're experiencing as a couple. The other part, though, this was released right around the time that the United States invaded Iraq in the Second Iraq War in 2003. So anytime I heard that, when this album was out, I thought of that. And then he has another song on Accelerated Evolution called Suicide, where he screams, 10,000 lies, 10,000 lies. And I think of all the lies that George W. Bush, the president, in 2003, told in the before the start of the war to get us into war. And then I think of the president we have now, President Trump, and tens of thousands of lies he's told since 2016. So, and I know the Strapping Young Lad album, SYL, that there are references to war in that as well, and it makes sense because both of these albums were written at the same time. And Townsend recently in his podcast did talk about some lyrical regrets that he has in SYL. The rape song specifically, he wrote it as an anti-rape song, but when people listened to it, they didn't get it, and he is just he's vociferously apologized for that, and it's something that he deeply regrets, and he didn't realize how people interpreted the song until the album was released, and he was like doing press for it. But he that's a song that he'll never do. He won't do most Strapping Young Lad songs. I think he does Love every once in a while from the Alien album, but I don't think he'll do anything from the SYL album, and especially the rape song. He does not want that misinterpretation to have any grounds in reality, and he just it's just something he regrets, and he apologized for it, and I think it was a heartfelt apology. But yeah, so back to Accelerated Evolution and Storm, just these two songs, and Kingdom from the Epicloud album, and just these two songs, just how they're tied together. And I first heard Kingdom because of YouTube and because of the reaction videos, and when he said "Stay With Me," I immediately thought of Storm, and how it seems that he doesn't want to be alone. He wants someone to stay with him, and hopefully for his sake, it seems like he's doing okay. He's being super prolific during quarantine. He's having quarantine concerts, and he's really, doing all he can as a musician, and I think as a compassionate human being, to help with his music. And then he also does charity work. He has quarantine concerts where people can pay to watch him, in his studio play songs. Then he donates them to different hospitals, like children's hospitals. He's been big on charities like that. So it seems that he might not have even peaked yet when it comes to his career. It seems like he's just getting a lot of well-deserved recognition now, well into his late 40s, which is excellent. I think someone like Devin will be around, till he's 100, and hopefully that voice, oh my God. I know the guitar playing will stay great. Hopefully that voice, that voice stays, because such a range, because he can go from, soothing, beautiful vocal melodies to such a guttural, angry, scary, screeching scream, and an amazing range, especially the range as far as the type of singing, but then at how high he can get note-wise. So if you haven't heard these songs, I hope this has inspired you to listen to both of them. Buy some of Devin Townsend's music. Don't just listen to it on Spotify or YouTube. I believe he makes more money if you buy it. So if you like what you hear and you want him to make more work and make a living doing it, the best thing to do is actually buy music, buy merch, buy his stuff. If he helps you get through the day, and that's why I love art so much. And hopefully this podcast can help get you through the day and help get you through this pandemic and help get you through if you're in quarantine, or help get you through the pain that this pandemic has caused. This is September 6th, 2020. So we've been going through this in the United States since January. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a proud New Yorker. New York got hit really hard. And I'm hoping there is no surge now that school is open. There's been a slight uptick in New York because the colleges have opened, and I hope it doesn't get too bad. New Yorkers are vigilant for the most part, and if we listen to science, if we listen to credible sources of information, whether it's the New York Times, the BBC, NPR, Washington Post, USA Today, good sources of news to help keep us informed and to help keep us safe. those are the places you want to go to. For the sake of yourself, the sake of your health, and the sake of your people in your community and the people that you care about. Please just take care of each other out there. All right, now more than ever, please. All right, so that being said, if you want more of me, you can find me on Twitter at MMAM Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at MMAM Podcast. Feel free to email me at mmampodcast@gmail.com. So on the YouTube channel, feel free to comment, rate, share, do all that good stuff. All right, everyone. Until next time, take it easy. Bye.